Well, those are really like the glory days of sports talk. That's certainly when I was a listener, and it neatly overlaps with a memorable time for the Canucks organization too. Of course, what do you remember the most about this era?
Well, certainly I'll never forget, like so many people, that what happened in '94. That was just so magical. And, we rode that wave. I had it in my contract that Sportstalk would be on the road with the Canucks in the playoffs every year. So for 4 rounds, we were there, and you could just feel it building and building the interest. And we became the gathering spot, really, for Canuck fans. There was such a euphoria at that time. Game nights, off nights, we'd extend our show well past midnight some nights, including 7 hours after the final game, Game 7 at Madison Square Garden. So that was fun. We also just seemed to have a lot of freedom there, and it just felt so liberating being there. I knew that eventually CKNW would want me, even though it had never been spoken about. But when Jack Cullen, their longtime Owl Prowl, and he's a legend, 40 plus years doing the show. When he retired or was asked to retire, I kind of knew that they wanted to keep all the sports on the AM dial. But those years at Rock 101, I can't explain properly how happy I was there.
And really that team was really just a Joe Lunchpail kind of squad. Just happy to be there. Fans were happy to be along for the ride. Quite a difference from the expectations put on the 2011 team with their multiple 100-point seasons. And I think you think of that 94 squad a little more highly than the 2011 squad.
I do. But that's not to take too much away from the 2011 squad. But the 94 team was such, and maybe I'm just so biased, but I was around them so much. But what a great group of people led by Pat Quinn. And I think about I just the Lindens and Babbage and Lumes and Courtnells and Adams and Ronings and so on. So I could keep going down the list. They were all good people. Like, I'm seriously. I mean, I was around a lot of sports people, and these guys were quality people, and I hurt for them. I really did when they couldn't quite finish. I felt convinced by the end they were going to finish. The 2011 team, wonderful, regular seasons, and they did, have that one playoff year. They didn't have very much playoff success in other years, but that year they did. I did not find them a likable group, to be honest. I found them a little bit on the cocky side, but they were still very, very skillful. The Sedin twins are wonderful, wonderful players, but I don't think their playoff performances were, as good as they should have been, could have been. I don't know how to phrase that, but and I could say that people like Burrows and Kessler, they were character guys, but sometimes I just didn't feel they played with as much honor as I thought, and other people agreed with me at that time. I mean, so on, but and Mike Gillis at the top, he was rather arrogant as a general manager compared to Pat Quinn. So I feel that the the two teams were really great teams, but I have a soft spot for the '94 group.
Now, if you had to pick your all-time greatest guest, I guess it would have to be Brian Burke. And you really go into the love-hate relationship the two of you developed over the years, both on and off the air. Can I ask what your relationship is like with him these days?
You can ask. I haven't spoken to him for a long time. I've been out of it in terms of sports talk for what, since 2014. Yeah, 2014 was our last year, so that's 7, 8 years ago. He has not kept in touch. I have not kept in touch. I did near I guess, my Western Hockey League days in 2013. I probably spoke with him then because he was with the Calgary Flames, and I was often in Calgary calling Hitmen games. So I would see him in the press box, and it was very pleasant. But like I said in the book, I mean, we had a really good start and a not very good middle, and by the end, when and I'm not talking about this end, but I mean the last few years of sports talk, I think we struck the right chord. It's just too bad we had some rough times because he was a tremendous guest, and I'm forever thankful that he was on our show as many times as he was, and became really appointment listening.
Now we could spend all day going through the chronology of the book, but I think the real secret sauce of the whole thing is the chapter where you talk about the secret sauce of sports talk. It kind of reminds me of Coach's Corner, where Don Cherry would go over a piece of game video and speak directly to the kids watching at home. So Dan, for all the aspiring broadcasters out there, what are the 6 Ps?
Proper preparation prevents piss poor performance.
There it is.
That's how you made me say that word. I was trying to think of a more Q-rated, but yeah, I mean that's how we lived every day. My producer and I, we knew that if we didn't prepare properly, and by that, and I go through that in the secret sauce. I mean, I certainly needed to start every show solidly. I would actually make sure that the beginning of my program was always scripted out for the first even 2 3 minutes. The worst feeling in the world is to start something, especially if it's going to be a 3 hour show, and you're stumbling around there at the beginning because you're just not prepared. So I always wanted to make sure that first 2 or 3 minutes got me going, because if it didn't, and obviously I learned from trial and error somewhere along the way, if it didn't, it would affect me the rest of the show. I couldn't get through that. I mean, even though it was an hour earlier, I'd still be thinking, what a terrible start we had tonight. And so that became, really important. It's funny, the most relaxing hours of my day usually were the hours I was on the air. All the other hours, waking hours, were spent in prep, writing editorials, researching guests, all those things that you would expect, and just making sure that we're on top of things, making sure that we're not missing something that's very major.